Okay, so you think you know broccoli, right? That little green, tree-shaped veggie that's been on your plate 1,000 times. Well, I'm gonna let you in on a secret. The real story of broccoli is way, way stranger and more fascinating than you can probably imagine.
So let me ask you something. What do you think broccoli, crunchy cabbage, those little Brussels sprouts, and leafy kale all have in common? I mean, they seem totally different, don't they? The answer to this is going to change how you look at the produce aisle forever.
Get this. They are all the exact same plant. Seriously, not cousins, not distant relatives. They're the same species. It's the central twist of this whole story. One plant just wearing a bunch of different, delicious disguises.
So how on earth is that even possible? Well, it's the story of the ultimate plant makeover, a project that took humans centuries to pull off. We're going to dive into how one single, pretty humble plant was transformed into pretty much an entire section of the grocery store.
So let's meet the star of our show, Brassica oleracea. You can just call it wild cabbage. This is it. This is the single common ancestor, the original blueprint from which all those other vegetables were, well, designed.
You know, the best way to wrap your head around this is to think about dog breeds. A teeny tiny Chihuahua and a giant Great Dane look nothing alike, right? But they're both the same species. It's the exact same idea with broccoli and kale. It all comes down to selective breeding.
Ancient farmers were basically plant designers. For generations, they just picked the wild cabbage plants that had traits they liked and bred them together. If you wanted big, tasty leaves, you just keep breeding the plants with the biggest leaves, and boom, eventually you get kale. Want a big, dense ball of leaves right at the top? That's the terminal bud, and that's how we get cabbage. Tiny little buds all along the stem. Hello, Brussels sprouts. And if you decide to select for the flower buds, you get our star today, broccoli.
So yeah, broccoli isn't something you just stumble upon in the wild. It's pretty much a human invention. And that invention has been on one heck of a journey, starting in ancient Rome and traveling all the way to your dinner plate tonight.
This story really kicks off over 2,000 years ago. Early versions of this plant were being grown around the Mediterranean way back in the 6th century BCE. The Romans were definitely eating some early forms of broccoli, but it was really in Italy that it got refined, getting its name in the 1600s, before Italian immigrants finally brought it over to North America in the 19th century.
And you know, even the name itself tells the story. Broccoli is just the plural of the Italian word broccolo, which literally means the flowering crest of a cabbage. It's a perfect description, isn't it? It's a cabbage that was specifically bred to grow this huge head of flower buds.
Okay, so we've covered the wild history, but that's really only half the story. There's a very good reason this man-made vegetable got so popular. So let's dig into the science of why broccoli is considered such a nutritional powerhouse.
I mean, it's just packed with good stuff, but a couple of these numbers are, well, they're just staggering. Let's just focus on the vitamins here for a second. 99%. Just 1 cup of broccoli gives you basically your entire recommended daily amount of vitamin C. That is an incredible punch, way more than you'd get from your average orange. And it doesn't stop there. That same serving also gives you 85% of your daily vitamin K, which is absolutely crucial for things like blood clotting and bone health. It's no surprise this thing has a superfood reputation.
But listen, here's a really important takeaway. How you cook your broccoli really matters. If you boil it, you're actually losing a ton of these beneficial compounds called glucosinolates. Steaming or stir-frying, on the other hand, keeps most of that nutritional goodness locked right in. So, something to think about. All right, let's talk about taste. We've all met someone, heck, maybe it's you, who just cannot stand broccoli. They find it super bitter. Well, it turns out they're not just being picky. There's actually a scientific reason for it. Believe it or not, it might actually be in your DNA. There's a gene called TAS2R38, and some people have a version of it that makes them extra sensitive to the naturally bitter compounds you find in veggies like broccoli. So if you hate it, you can now officially blame your genes.
So from its Italian roots to its genetic quirks, broccoli has totally gone on to conquer the world. Let's zoom out for a second and just look at the massive scale of modern broccoli production. It has truly become a global green machine.
So who's growing it all? Well, in 2023, China and India were the undisputed heavyweights, each producing over 9 million tons. I mean, they account for the vast majority of the entire world's supply. The US comes in a distant third.
And if you combine it with its close cousin, cauliflower, the world produced 26.5 million tons of these veggies in just 1 year. It's almost impossible to even picture that much broccoli.
But here's what's really amazing about this massive global scale.
You can't harvest broccoli with the machine. The heads all mature at different rates, so you need a person to look and know when each one is ready to be cut. That means that every single head of broccoli you have ever eaten was harvested by hand. Think about that for a second.
So, we've seen that broccoli isn't just a vegetable. It's a piece of human history, it's a product of incredible design, and a global phenomenon. Which leaves me with one final question for you. Now that you know the truth about broccoli, what other natural foods on your plate have a secret history just waiting for you to discover?